want a TDC automotive vehicle for 2022.
At TDC Automotive, old is out and new is in. Visit us and take our 2021-2022 models for a spin. Boasting all new features, colors, whistles, and bells, you can reserve your vehicle today. There's no need to dwell. Get your VAT Day savings, registration, licensing, rewards points, and much more. Honestly, we just don't know what you're waiting for.
Visit your automotive VAT Day specialist today for the best vehicles and best value. TDC Automotive, #1 for a reason.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. Today is Saturday, December 18, 2021, and it is 8 minutes past the hour of 11 here in our studios. I am Devon Cornelius, and you're listening to WINNFM for another edition of Inside the News. We're going to begin this program very shortly, and today we will be discussing the budget, or in other words, decoding the budget.
People make the world go
So we have on the show for today Mr. Kevin Hope, the Executive Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And we also have Mr. Craig Tuckett, who is the President of the UE Global Alumni Association. We're also waiting for Mr. Schneidman Warner to join us later on in the program. And we will be discussing the budget for today. Let me apologize for the late start, but we're going to head right into today's discussion. So for the past week, the parliamentarians, the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, they have been discussing or debating rather the budget, which in parliamentary language is the Appropriation Bill 2022-2021. And the Prime Minister made his presentation on Tuesday of this week, that was the 14th, at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort. And of course, other members of his cabinet, other members of parliament, as well as members of the opposition, lended their voice to the debate. Now, what we are trying to do today is to have a discussion on this debate and to, really talk about some of the advantages, some of the possible challenges, and what does the budget mean for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to really give you as much as possible an in-depth conversation and analysis of the budget presentation tabled on Tuesday. Good morning, Mr. Hope, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation here at WINNFM 98.9. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and a blessed morning to the listening audience.
Awesome. We also have on joining us via Zoom call, Mr. Craig Tuckett. Good morning, Mr. Tuckett. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Cornelius. Yes, indeed, I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning to my colleague who will be joining me in this discussion. And of course, good morning to the good listeners of WINNFM, those who are home and abroad. I look forward to this very intellectual discussion as relates to the 2022 budget that was put before the table at Parliament by our political leader and Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris.
Okay, so the budget for this year is entitled, or was presented under the theme, Investing in Our People, Putting St. Kitts and Nevis Back on Track. Investing in our people, putting St. Kitts and Nevis back on track. And I think that the theme in and of itself is interesting. As you know, we are in the COVID-19 pandemic and the economy is rebounding and we're trying to get back to normalcy. We know that, yes, COVID is going to be here for some time, but we're hoping that for the new year and ahead that things may change. The tourism industry will rebound. People will be going back out to work. So we want to talk about, firstly, the possible challenge in making the budget operational. So the budget as it is now is $952.2 million EC dollars. And of course, this budget will seek to will assist the ministries and departments within the government of St. Kitts and Nevis to carry out its duties and responsibilities, its mandate. Can I get from you, Mr. Hope, your take on some of the possible challenges you foresee in making the budget operational?
Okay, thank you. So, of importance, when we think about a budget, we have to think about both revenue or income collected by the government, in addition to what would have been identified in the budget in terms of their intention to expend funds. So it's important when we're thinking about how to operationalize a budget that we pay particular attention to the revenues collected or projected to be collected by the government. And of importance to us, or of concern to us, would be how much of our budget depends upon the collection of receipts from citizenship by investment. So let's say hypothetically, our budget in this case is $952 million. And let's say 40% of that budget is contingent upon the receipt of citizenship by investment receipts. It means, therefore, in a situation where those receipts aren't materialized or do not materialize, we are now faced with a situation where we either have to cut some aspects of the budget in terms of some areas, in some cases in a number of countries that tend to be capital expenditure, what we call public investment. Or in other cases, it would require the government to go to the market, whether domestically or international or externally, to borrow to finance the budget. So first and foremost, I think we need, as a people, also for us in the private sector, to pay attention to how is this budget being financed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hope. We have joining us Mr. Schneidman Lorna. Good morning, Mr. Warner, and thank you so much for coming to the studios of WINNFM 98.9. We're going to be heading to you to get your take on the possible challenges in making the budget operational. What is your take on that?
Good morning. I echo the sentiments of the gentleman in that our budget is contingent on realizing the projections, because that's what they are, of the Minister of Finance. And I echo the sentiments. I always echo on budgets the sentiments of an economist, John Maynard Keynes, who is alleged to have said that budgets are more than an arithmetical abstraction. They are expression of public policy. So it's more than just the numbers, more for this department, less for that, revenues from this source, revenues from that source. It's about more the policies that the administration hopes to achieve and implement and achieve, rather than just the sheer numbers that are involved. And the numbers give an expression of how badly or how affordably these ambitions are. And like all things, time will tell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Warner. And of course, we have on the Zoom call Mr. Craig Tuckett. Mr. Tuckett, can I get from you your take on the possible challenges you foresee in making the budget operational?
Thank you very much again, Devon, for giving me the opportunity to be on your program to discuss a very pertinent issue and topic that deals with national development. So first, let me say, before I address the issue of the possible challenges, it is important for us to know and look at the track record of this administration, the Team Unity administration, led by our Prime Minister and Minister with responsibility for finance and health. We have never had or seen any challenges from since 2015, when the Minister of Finance presented to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis the budget every year thereafter, along with double salary, which was only 1 year it was not implemented. So the question as to what are the challenges, based on the track record, we have never seen any such challenge. Why? I would say because of the fiscal management, the ingenious fiscal management of our economy in the times when we were able to not only review our present state of affairs when we were involved in an IMF program, of which we got out scot-free with very good, hard-working people in the Ministry of Finance, led by our Prime Minister and Minister with responsibility for finance. But also in these times of economic crisis with the novel global pandemic of COVID-19. And even now, as we are coming out of this novel pandemic, which we see reductions in the number of cases being identified in our beloved Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we see the commitment of our nationals to do and play their parts to ensure that we overcome this very tragic pandemic that has been affecting many countries in the Caribbean and in the world. And so we see and we are committed and also must stay confident that we will have this budget implemented with now answer the question. What are the possibilities of challenges? It all depends upon the people. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis, which we, the administration of community, has said that we are going to be investing into the people. If the people are committed to working hard to implementing their particular job descriptions, whether it be in the Ministry of Finance, whether it be in the various ministries on which the various budgetary allocations have been given, and many of them have received increases. When we see the implementation starting from January 1st, 2022, onwards to 31st of December 2022, I will inably say and confidently say that those challenges will be met by the people. But if it is that we have persons who are trying to, unfortunately, stymie the productivity of our people with negative rumors and innuendos, and try to discourage the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis to continue to work hard, then we will see challenges to implementation of this budget. But for me, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis have shown their resolve, they have shown their confidence in this administration, and we will continue to see great things, I am sure, as we now have come very close to a $1 billion budget. And who knows how that will indeed pan out in the next year. We may meet that threshold, but I can assure you that the implementation of this budget will be done effectively, and we will see the benefits of this budget for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in the years to come.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Tucker. It is 24 minutes past the hour of 11, and you're listening to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9, and we are discussing the budget debate or budget presentation tabled in Parliament or presented in Parliament by the Prime Minister on Tuesday, December 14. Now, we want to look at some of the areas that, in your opinion, stand out and those that require some improvement. People tuning into the budget on Tuesday, from what I saw, interacting with people at the Marriott and interacting with people after the presentation, of course, most people were pleased and happy, particularly civil and public servants, that there was a double salary. So I think that is what most people were wrapped around, a double salary and the budget now nearing $1 billion. But what are some of the areas that you think stand out, and what do you think requires some improvement? I want to get from you firstly, Mr. Hope.
Well, I think on balance, we have to recognize, given we are still going through the effects of the pandemic, that the focus of the budget is the right one in terms of where we're paying attention to protecting lives, people well-being, and also trying to protect employment in terms of retention of employment. There is also, when you think of a budget, you want to look at the allocations also, which oftentimes would highlight where the government of the day is prioritizing. So the investment or the planned expenditure in health and education, we believe, are in the right place, especially where in this case we're also still responding to the pandemic and also trying to actually address what we may want to call the learning deficit that would have occurred as a result of the pandemic. I think I sat with some colleagues of mine within the private sector and other colleagues. We were trying to estimate how much contact hours of quality education services were lost. And I think we came up with an estimate of around somewhere between 60 contact hours per month. We assume, well, an academic year is 9 months, so again, 60 by 9, you have the math right there. So we're talking about, in excess of 500 contact hours per academic year within the last year and a half plus, of which a number of our kids would have lost in terms of quality education. So a focus on actually increasing the budget for education and also health so we can respond better to the pandemic is well received by us in the private sector. We still feel that in some cases, there still need to be a bit more focus on micro, small, and medium enterprises. We haven't heard enough. Yes, there were a number of statements made within the budget and equally subsequent discussion. And for us, when we think of micro, small, and medium enterprises are the lifeblood in terms of the private sector. And this is who employ the 60+% of active employees in St. Kitts and Nevis after the government account, in terms of after we account for government employees. And as such, the comments coming out from the private sector and a number of these firms are how high the cost is to access finance, in some cases 7 to 14%. So there is a real need, especially during a period where they've been limited to low cash flow, for us to start to think about how do we provide greater support to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. We also have to start thinking about how do we diversify our economy. So yes, we've seen an increase in our planned expenditure in agriculture, and that is also something that we commend, because agriculture is also employment intensive and also it addressed the issue of food security. But there is some concern, especially for MSMEs within the tourism sector, the manufacturing sector, for example. We haven't heard much about how we are targeting to retain employment or encourage employment or even encourage investment in that sector. So we again are looking forward to continue our deliberations and engagement with the authorities in areas of this nature. There have been discussion around how do we move towards a knowledge or digital economy. And again, we in the private sector stand ready to actively participate and make our contribution in that space. But of interest, I looked at the data, and I recall successive years, over the last 3 years, we've actually had a reduction in capital expenditure. And one would assume from Economics 101 that during an economic, a financial, a health crisis in this case, that one would undertake counter-cyclical policies. And as such, we are seeing, based upon what is estimated to be capital expenditure for 2022, to be roughly a 25% reduction in capital expenditure from the year prior. And we understand that obviously when you know, in terms of capital projects, that they have a duration in terms of a peak, a trough, and then it reduces. But during a period like this, we would have anticipated even a greater desire to expend, or at least plan to expend, more productive expenditure beyond health and education, which we would consider to be productive expenditure, but also to target capital projects in terms of low-hanging fruits within those capital projects that could benefit micro, small, medium enterprises, where they can be employed or brought on board to deliver services, to deliver goods, and to help implement a number of these projects. And here is an area of concern that we may have in terms of the future. 2022 is still uncertain with Omicron. So, there's still a need for us to go and do a deeper dive behind the CapEx, and also to have lengthier discussions with respect to how are we addressing the concerns of the MSMEs with respect to the cost and access to finance, and also with respect to how are we upskilling our labor force to operate in this new paradigm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hope. You spoke about more being done for small and micro-sized businesses. Can you say what are you expecting for the small business sector, small and medium-sized businesses, for 2022 and beyond?
So there are two interesting projects that were, I guess, discussed in day 2 and day 3 of the budget for those who were following, and equally what has obtained over the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. 2 projects come to mind. It's the UNDP Futures project that was being done via the Ministry of Tourism, of which I think there are 21 beneficiaries of grants from that project, anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 US. And these are individuals who now can go about actually operationalize their business. And of importance, this project, in addition to the project funded by the Taiwanese embassy, which is the Empowerment Women Empowerment, Entrepreneurship, and Financial Inclusion Project, which as at yesterday, 30 women would have matriculated from that program. Similarly, 10 of which would have received grants of around 2,000 US per grant. And the women are the most vulnerable and have been and are the ones who were most impacted by this crisis based on a number of anecdotal data. Not to mention, it actually helped to address the issue with respect to poverty and vulnerability in our society. And if we are going to empower and uplift our women who are leading a number of enterprises, we are actually contributing to job creation. And in that case, I guess it's our plea, it's our encouragement, because similarly within the private sector, we are looking to do our part to support entrepreneurship and innovation. As to how are we designing projects that would be twofold. One has a socioeconomic benefit, while also has the benefit of job creation. And these are two projects worthy of further discussion, worthy of us actually seeing how we could scale, how even for a number of us within the private sector, within government, to see how we could provide more access to finance for even those beneficiaries who won't have had the opportunity to access the grants. Because there are a number of women, I recall there was an estimated 209 applicants in the Taiwanese project, of which 30 would have benefited to date. So there is a real need, a real demand for us to start targeting, to be more strategic, to create more concessional financing for a number of the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And in that way, we would actually be addressing the issue with respect to reducing poverty, the issue with respect to ensuring we create more jobs within St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hope. We're going to stick up in quickly to give a shout out to our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to head to you, Mr. Warner, to get your take on the areas that stand out and some that require improvement. And also, if you can, give your view on the support for small and medium-sized businesses. We'll take this short break, and we will be right back. Stay tuned to WINNFM 98.9.
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Welcome back to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. It is 11:36 in the studios of WINNFM. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius, and you're listening to Inside the News. We have here as our guest Mr. Kevin Hope, the Executive Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Schneidman Warner, a social commentator, and we have online Mr. Craig Tuckett, President of the UE Global Alumni Association, and they are giving their take on the budget presented in Parliament on Tuesday. And what we're seeking to do is to break it all down and basically decode what was presented on Tuesday. Welcome back, Mr. Warner. Can we get from you some of the areas in the budget that you say that you would say stand out, and where or what areas do you think need improvement?
First, let me say that I have not had an opportunity to listen to the budget debates, so I am restricted by the contents of the Minister of Finance's presentation. And also, since we do not have any detail as to the individual aspects of this budget,
Right.
the first thing that stands out for me is the significant differences in some departments. I noticed that the ministry with the largest increase year on year is the Office of the Prime Minister. It has gone up by 37%, from 81 million to $111 million. The largest one, well, I shouldn't say that was the next largest one. The largest one was the Ministry of Human Settlement, Social Security, National Health Insurance, which increases from 7.3 million to 11.6 million, an increase of 58%. And the next largest after that is the Ministry of Agriculture, 28% increase from 16 million to 20 million. Unfortunately, since I do not know what factors contribute to this sizable increase, I cannot make an objective comment as to whether or not they are whether or not I think they are justified, whether or not I think they need to be improved, because I do not know the specific components of these amounts. So that limits my ability to be fair and objective on these increases. But I just noticed that these increases are significant. On the other hand, the Ministry of Labor has a 23% reduction from 9 million to 7 million. And Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Communications, that has gone down 19% from 7.6 million to 9 million. And so except for those amounts that jump out as far as, sorry, that was an increase, I apologize. Except for those large changes,
Yes.
As I said, labor, a 22% decrease, and the Ministry of the Prime Minister's Office, a 37% increase, and health insurance and Social Security, a 58% increase. One waits to see what the breakdown of these represent. What is it in there that needs that significant increase? One will not be surprised if health goes up significantly, but health has only increased by 11%. Well, 12% if you round it up, by 12% from 66 to 73. It's not a case of the dollars. It is how great a change over the previous year's allocation one has to look at. Because if I'm normally spending $5 on something and it goes from $5 to $6, that's a 20% increase. But if I was spending $20 on something, it goes from $20 to $21. Even though 21 is a much bigger number, that's only a 5% increase. And so we need to look at that aspect of it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Warner. You said that one may not be too surprised with the increase in health, as I was talking to someone the other day, and not just the opinion of one person, but generally people continue to call for more funding in the Ministry of Health so that they can be better access to health care. What is your take?
It's very easy to make generalized statements, but what do you mean by greater access to healthcare?
Well, they are of the opinion that too many times we have people who are in need of healthcare and they would have to leave the Federation to get these services done. They think that, for the most part, you should be able to get certain surgeries done here in St. Kitts and Nevis. What I must mention, Mr. Wan, is that a part of the presentation made by the Prime Minister for the Ministry of Health, he noted that they will be installing a new MRI machine. They will be getting a new general surgeon, a ear, nose, and throat specialist. So, in my opinion, I think the increase is being explained with the addition of these these resources. But from talking to people, some are of the opinion that healthcare is not what they want it to be. So it's just like you go to the store to buy something for $5, and it goes up to $10. You would expect that it would be better.
The challenge with making such demands is size.
Yes.
We boast about being the smallest independent nation in the world. We are mere 55,000 people. It's a matter of economies of scale. When someone gets certain types of services in larger countries, there is a population to support that. There's a population to provide the funding. There's a population to represent the need. I'll say this. I'm sure from time to time we have needs for a neurosurgeon in St. Kitts. But how is that person going to earn a living based on the number of times they'll be asked a demand? I'm sure someone in St. Kitts would say, why don't we have heart transplants? But how many times would we have, and what would the cost of a heart transplant relative to the larger budget? And so it's a matter of economies of scale. One of the things that we must recognize that we don't yet have national health insurance. We are told it's coming one of these days. Time will tell. But some years ago, a previous chief medical officer pointed out that for every $10 worth of services provided at Joseph and France Hospital, the public only paid $1. $9 was unpaid. So many people go to the hospital, and under different reasons, the service that they get, they do not pay for them directly. They are paid out of the general taxation that we all contribute to. And so the question is, how much are we willing to pay for? Saying I want more out of government is so easy, but someone has to pay for it. And who is that someone? We, the taxpayers. And how much more are we willing to pay? We speak about, oh, let's reduce the VAT rate. Okay, reduce the VAT rate, and therefore less money comes into the economy, less money comes into the treasury. The private sector representative here would always tell you the private sector would always be wanting to have the lowest rate of taxation so that their most money can circulate within the economy. But we must recognize that we are not a pure capitalist society. We have a very, very significant social structure in St. Kitts and Nevis. People go to school, people go to preschool all the way to college without having to put out $1 for tuition. Where did that money come from? People get school books, we get school meals, we get uniforms, we get all sorts of other support from the country, from the so-called government. Well, it's actually we paying for it indirectly so that someone like me who doesn't have a child but is more than happy to pay taxes to support education. It is people who have no direct people who don't drive motor vehicles or own motor vehicles, paying taxes that go towards maintaining the roads because the bus that they get onto uses those roads. And so, coming back to the healthcare, let us be specific. What do you want? And can we, an economy of 55,000 people, afford some of the things that we require?
Thank you so much, Mr. Warner. We also have Mr. Craig Tuckett. Can I get from you, Mr. Tuckett, what are some of the areas in the budget that you think stand out, and what are some of the areas that require improvement?
Well, thank you very much again, Devon, for giving me the opportunity to address this question. First, let me say I'm not only the president of the University of West Indies Global Alumni Association, but also I am the Director of Communications for the People's Labour Party, which is one of the major components for the Team Unity Coalition administration, led by our political leader and Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris. So I just want to put that out there as well. Both of my colleagues have touched somewhat, whether directly or indirectly, in regards to certain areas, and they raised certain questions as regards to the reason for certain increases in certain ministries, whereas there were decreases in others. I would just like to say, as the president of the Newtown Fishermen's Cooperative, which is the largest cooperative in St. Kitts and Nevis, and also as a member of the St. Kitts Farmers Cooperative and the founding member and first president of that organization, agriculture is very important to our nation, as we all know. When I was the chairman of the COVID-19 marketing committee that was responsible to ensure that all the particular select crops that we had, the government had invested in to ensure that whether or not we would have been negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic at the time, we would have had major food resources at hand to sustain our people. Of course, we know that that didn't affect us. We had the opportunity to look at infrastructure that was needed to ensure the storage of any amount of goods that are produced by our local farmers. So what you would see, based on my intimate knowledge of within the ministry and the plans that were set out, not only in the budget estimates, but also what was presented by the Prime Minister, that there is going to be major infrastructure development in agriculture. And so that's why you saw the increase in agriculture by $7 odd million. So you would see there are going to be increases, or should I say development, in the processing of meats with a processing unit in the future. You're going to see the development of storage facilities. You're going to also see the development of road networks that would give access to farmers to their farms. And also I was informed that there will also be investments in irrigation and access to water to farmers. So that is why you will see, I would think, a justified increase in the Ministry of Agriculture. Both of my colleagues would have already addressed the issue of health, and I agree with the fact that my previous colleague would have touched the fact that on economies of scale. But the issue of what the people need, and me, I being one who was on the ground and hearing what the people are clamoring for, as rightly said, it depends on what we are able to basically as a people provide. When we're talking about health, we're talking about human resources in terms of professional doctors, specialists in various areas. And at this point in time, we have a lot of general practitioners. And so even though we would want to have more doctors in terms of urology or in terms of cancer, oncology, we just don't have the human resources. And that is why our government had partnered with the government of Antigua and Barbuda, who had established a urology unit in Antigua, so that we will then have our opportunity to access those facilities as they are just a plane ride away. And of course, in regards to the Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the Prime Minister, as we all know, is involving also constituency empowerment, various other departments within his ministry. And so I envisage the reason why you will see an increase in this regard is because we will endeavor to see more investment into our people by various departments. And in regards to Mr. Hope's concern about micro businesses, let us not forget that for the past 7 years, the Development Bank, through the Ministry of Finance, have been giving opportunities for new business entrepreneurs and also existing to access microfinancing through the Development Bank and also through the National Bank. And so those facilities are there, but they have also been encouraging the environment of facilitating the financial sector by having reduced tax on first-time home builders. We know the program in terms of during the hurricane season where the WOOF program was envisaged, and that also had an impact on our construction sector. And so you see the government continue this financial policy to try to increase employment and by the same time ensure that small businesses benefit from their fiscal policies. And you can see that being extended to this budget this year. So those are my contributions, and I must say the various aspects of increases are justified. And in regards to the decreases now in terms of public sector, infrastructure, public works, the reason why you would see that because a lot of work would have been done under the former Minister of Public Works, which is now Ambassador Ian Patrick Library, in terms of infrastructure development and repair. And so now that we have that already done, there's no need to have the large increase or the large budgetary allocations for public works because the work has already been done, so it's now just to maintain. And in regards to labor, do not forget, it is under this administration we saw the giving out of the necessary benefits for employees, especially in the tourism sector, would have been negatively affected, whether it be by Marriott or by any other hotel industry sector partners. And so you found that the Prime Minister himself would have gone with the Minister of Labour, negotiated certain returns for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we saw that through the Ministry of Labour, they would have paid out the benefits. And so that majority being done, and so therefore there's no need for a large allocation for that, this budgetary, and therefore that can justify the decrease. So remember, and in closing, each budget for every year is a building block for the other. And so there's no need to have increases where there would have been major investments in the prior years. And of course, where there's need for more investment, then you'll see the allocations increase. And that's why we need to follow every year as a people the development and the budgets that are laid before Parliament, which will affect each of our lives, and in this case, positively. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Tuckett. We'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back, we will begin wrapping up the first hour of Inside the News. We have about a good 10 minutes left, so we'll use that to wrap up the first hour of this discussion. Let's take this short break, and we will be right back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go round.
Gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click.
With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free U.S. mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience. Free consolidation up to £10. Competitive rates. Free package tracking account with live notifications. Free delivery and, of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Welcome back to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius, and we have in studio Mr. Kevin Hope, the Executive Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and we're joined also by Mr. Schneidman Warner, social commentator, and Mr. Craig Tuckett, President of the UE Global Alumni Association. We're continuing today's discussion on the budget presentation tabled in Parliament on Tuesday, and of course budget continued throughout the week with the contributions by the different members of government and opposition. Now, quickly before we wrap up the first hour, we're looking at the budget in its entirety, and we want to speak on the fiscal safeguards for the possibility of natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, flooding. So the budget is 952, and this is what the government has budgeted for in the different areas: health, tourism, education. What happens, or would a natural disaster significantly affect the budget, and does it have fiscal safeguards for these possibilities. Mr. Hope?
All right, thank you. So, the pandemic is oftentimes viewed as 2 or 3 times the impact of a natural disaster, right? So we can use that in terms of what we're experiencing today, whether it be reduced income for businesses, unemployment, increase in unemployment, and the loss of lives. So when we think of natural hazards, in this case, St. Kitts and Nevis hurricanes, we think of the damage to property in addition to the damage, the loss of lives, and obviously the implication may have in terms of damaged infrastructure, whether it be our cruise ports, etc. Fortunately enough for us in St. Kitts and Nevis, we entered this pandemic with government savings in our domestic banking system, albeit to a large extent a result of inflows from citizenship by investment. And it's important, therefore, how we manage the use of those resources. And if you permit me to refer to earlier, while we support the focus of the budget on being people-centered, responsive, providing income support, and addressing health and education, we also need to be deliberate with how much of that resource we're getting, of that volatile resource we're getting. In some cases, we've had as much as 19% of our gross domestic product in inflows from citizenship by investment. So it makes no sense that we expend almost every cent of the inflows from citizenship by investment, but that we are deliberate. We have clearly articulated guidelines with respect to what proportion of it we're going to safeguard or have set aside for response to a natural disaster. We also have, in St. Kitts and Nevis, like many of our countries in the Caribbean, access to CRIF, which is an insurance response that we contribute to annually, that in the event we have a natural hazard, heavy rainfall, we can get some contributions from our contribution to that insurance. So what a country tend to do is, one, they would set aside savings so that they can respond immediately in terms of the whole rebuilding and also providing the support to the most affected. You would also have access or try to have access to insurance. In some countries like Jamaica, you may actually opt in to have what we call contingent financing, that if in the event of a natural hazard, it could trigger access to financing from like this Caribbean Development Bank, the International Development Bank. Fortunately for us in St. Kitts and Nevis, but yet we shouldn't take it for granted, is that we entered the pandemic with a proportionate size of government savings in our banking system. And as a consequence, we've been able to cushion. And I caution that when you're thinking about a budget, and a budget is always one that has to be balanced, you do not want to ensure that you're increasing your expenditure, right, in such a fashion that you actually intend to utilize a greater proportion of your citizenship by investment inflows. You want to set aside some for natural hazards. Mm-hmm. You probably even want to ensure that when you're expending that money, a good proportion of that money is going into capital expenditure, into productive expenditure, so that we could diversify our economy to ensure we build the kind of resilience to withstand shocks, whether it be to our tourism from a natural hazard or a pandemic, or we build in resilience to shocks to our major trading partner. In the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, which was no fault of ours, we were affected by investment flows. We were also affected by, in terms of investments and tourism flows into our economy. So one way to withstand shocks, whether it be natural hazards and future pandemic or emergency, is to ensure we start to mobilize and be deliberate with what proportion of those inflows or even our revenue we generate domestically we're going to retain for shocks. I'm mindful that I recall in 2017 we would have had deliberations and discussions and support from the IMF to at least have discussion to move towards a sovereign wealth fund, and I think that was discussion since 2013 as late as 2017. So do we intend to move along to have a sovereign wealth fund, or even beyond that, have a sort of fund set aside that we can respond to shocks? Those are the kind of discussions we're happy to entertain, to support, and to encourage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hope. Mr. Warner, can I get your take before we close off for the headline news?
Quickly, I would say, with regards to Mr. Tuckett's comment about some of these increases being investments in the future, etc., the challenge is that at this point, until the budget is approved and we have the published numbers, we don't know what the components are, what makes up $20 million or $40 million or $70 million. Regarding being able to take care of future emergencies, way back then, when we started to reap hundreds of millions of dollars from our Citizen by Investment program, more accurately described as the sale of citizenships, we were advised by the IMF that this program, the produce of this program, should be set aside basically as rainy day funds for future capital investments. Instead, it has now become part of our daily spending to pay for our street lights and pay for our health care and the chalk on the blackboards of our schools. And I am one of those who still thinks that the proceeds of the sale of citizenships, because of the unique nature of this source of revenue, should only be dedicated for long-term capital investment and for, let's call it, rainy day funds. No, we don't have to have a balanced budget. In emergencies, it's okay to have a budget deficit in case of serious economic challenges. But yet again, we don't have details on these numbers. And so knowing how much is being allocated in each ministry to take care of emergencies, whether natural disasters or others, I can't comment since I don't know what the component numbers are.
Thank you so much, Mr. Warner. We're out of time for the first hour. It is about 5 minutes past the hour of 12, and so we're going to take this break for the headline news, and we're going to continue inside the news thereafter. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to WINNFM 98.9. You're listening to Inside the News for Saturday, December 18, 2021. We'll take this short break for the headline news, and we will be right back. Stay tuned.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
You have the keys to your new car this Christmas? Now it's time to get it insured. Visit Didi Baldwin, agents for Caribbean Alliance Insurance, to save up to 65% off your motor insurance premium. All new clients are eligible for major discounts. Plus, There's lots of sweet prizes to be won. Switch and save and get in on the action. Visit us today in St. Kitts or Nevis, or give us a call at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Promotion ends December 31st and all quotes are valid until January 31st. Drive secure this Christmas with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With the Win Headline News, I am Kevon Brown.
And I'm Dominic Lescott.
Making the headlines, 2021 Panorama Competition winner to take home EC $15,000. 45 people receive certification from 2021 National Skills Training Program.
Entrepreneur Amelia Chiverton opens local artisan gift store, The Olive Tree, in the height of the pandemic.
Remaining missionaries kidnapped in Haiti released. Internationally, flash floods in northern Iraq have killed at least 12 people. Hundreds more have been injured. Now, the details. The winner of the 2021 Panorama competition has the chance to walk away with EC $15,000 this year. 7 steel pan bands, including the 2020 champions EBJ Harmonics, will compete for the prize tonight at 8 p.m., Saturday, December 18th. The competition, like last year, will be a virtual event featured on the social media platforms of Carnival Committee and will be staged at Carnival Village on Victoria Road. The 7 bands, their selection and order of appearance are Sweet Sticks with Imagine Dat by New Vibes Band International. Then Nevis Pan Ensemble performing Still Hanging by Spicy Ginger. Awali Rhythms, Iron Love by Nyla Blackman. EBJ Harmonics, Piece of the Road by Speedy. Young Vibrations Steel Orchestra, Backyard Jam by Farmanapi. Fantastics Steel Orchestra, Sunday Juve by King Conris, and finally NGU Steel Orchestra, This Melody by Baron. A release from the Carnival Committee stated that the prize monies were increased for the top 4 winners compared to 2020. The 2021 winner will take home $15,000, up from 2020's EC $9,000 cash prize. The second place band is expected to take home EC $12,000, third place EC $8,000, and fourth place EC $6,000. Non-placers will receive $3,000. The National Skills Training Program hosted its 2021 graduation ceremony at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort Ballroom on Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, under the theme, Small Opportunities Are the Start of Great Careers and Great Enterprises. 45 graduates aged 17 to 69 received certificates of completion for successfully finishing programs in basic electricity, vehicle maintenance, upholstery, cake and pastry making, sewing, small appliance repairs, cosmetology, and joinery or carpentry. Director of the program, Mrs. June James, reported that the program caters to individuals regardless of their age, socioeconomic status, and cognitive abilities.
At National Skills, our mission is to create job opportunities through skills training and personal development. The programs at National Skills programs touch almost every citizen. All ages, all capabilities, all status, our programs touch everyone. We have persons from the secondary schools that access training at national skills. We have persons from the New Horizons Rehabilitation Center. We have persons from the Addis Place. We have persons from the Cotton Thomas Comprehensive Secondary Schools. And our regular program, our adults who we are here celebrating today.
Said Mrs. James. Dr. Tricia Esdale, Senior Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Education, congratulated the graduates and encouraged them to continue their determination to succeed in their upcoming endeavors.
You pushed through, you persevered, and you completed your training. And so that tells me something really important about each and every one of you. And that's you know how to work hard and you know how to work through difficult situations. And I hope that you will take this same display of perseverance that you showed in completing your program into whatever endeavors you choose to pursue in the future.
When most brick-and-mortar stores across the globe were suffering as a result of the pandemic, Nevis-based Amelia Chiverton transformed her office of her vehicle rental company in Nelson Spring into a multi-purpose gift store showcasing 90% local artisans. Chiverton utilised the space in Cotton Ground to generate income whilst tourists were not coming into the Federation to rent vehicles. Chiverton is the owner and proprietor of the Olive Tree, which provides a space for local creators to display and sell their locally made products. Chiverton said, 90% of the artisans are local and the rest I bring in. The gift store features artisans such as local artist Vaughan Anslin, Eastern artist based in the US, and products by popular holistic care guru Back to My Roots spa owner Yajade Parry. The local gift store is home of a unique collection of beautiful handmade items made by St. Kitts and Nevis designers and craftspeople. Our stock includes a variety of memorable crafted items and also St. Kitts and Nevis souvenirs, according to their official Facebook page. It is located at Nelson Spring Condo Complex, Cotton Ground, from Wednesday, Thursday and Friday 10 till 3 and Saturdays 11 till 3 p.m.
In regional news, remaining missionaries kidnapped in Haiti released. One Caribbean News has the details.
After a 2-month ordeal, it is finally coming to an end. 12 hostages who were kidnapped by armed gang members in Haiti have been released. The country's justice minister says that all 17 missionaries who were kidnapped back in October are now free. Matt Rivers has this report from Port-au-Prince.
Well, some remarkable news here in Haiti with the news that came down on Thursday morning that the remaining 12 hostages of the 17 missionaries that were kidnapped exactly 2 months ago to the date on Thursday, that they had now been released by the gang 400 Mawozo, the gang that authorities say kidnapped this group of missionaries back in mid-October. This, according to the justice minister. However, a source in Haiti's security forces gave us a little bit more detail about exactly how this went down. The 12 remaining hostages were dropped off in a neighborhood, essentially, outside of Port-au-Prince around 5 a.m. They were left in this neighborhood, and this source tells us that it was locals in that neighborhood, just ordinary people who saw these people walking around in their neighborhood and actually brought the released missionaries to the local police station. That was how authorities actually first found out that they had been officially released by this gang. We know, according to this source, that medical checks were immediately performed and are currently underway for these missionaries that had been released, and that the source says they appeared skinny, which makes sense after 2 months in this gang's control. We know, according to the source, that a ransom was paid to free these hostages, though the amount of that ransom is not something that we are sharing at this point. But still, this is great news for these missionaries that it's been 2 months in or as hostages of the 400 Mawozo gang. They are now free and eventually will be heading home.
We now bring you these international reports.
In the suburbs of Erbil, a clean-up operation is underway. Torrential rain caused flash floods here and people's homes and businesses are badly damaged. Cameron Omar says floodwater swept through his property in the middle of the night.
My son called me last night and told me to come here because there was a flood. Thank God we're fine. The most important thing is that we're safe. Everything else can be fixed. The water level reached around 1.80 meters.
The flood started around 1 a.m. local time when most people were asleep. Not everyone got out alive.
This is my aunt's house. 2 people lived here and they had 2 guests who were disabled. When the house was flooded, one of the residents tried to save the disabled people. The force of the water meant he wasn't able to and they drowned. We removed 3 bodies from 0.5 metre of mud.
Iraqis have been hit by a succession of extreme weather events. They've endured repeated droughts in recent years, but have also experienced intense floods, made worse when torrential rain falls on sun-baked earth. The government's accused of being too slow to adapt to climate change and that widespread corruption has led to years of underinvestment in the city's infrastructure. It's left areas like this ill-prepared to deal with flooding.
This has happened because of government neglect and the absence of a solid plan. This is the 3rd time this has happened to us. There's no sewage system or anything that can save us from danger.
It will take weeks, if not months, for homes to dry out and be repaired. And many say they're worried about more floods in the future. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
The fate of Kim Potter, a white police officer accused in the racially charged killing of a black man, will soon be in the hands of a jury.
Members of the jury.
In highly anticipated testimony in a Minneapolis courtroom, Potter took the stand in her own defense, breaking down, saying she meant to pull out her taser. But the former police officer, who was a 26-year veteran, says she accidentally drew her gun instead and fired, killing 20-year-old Dante Wright as he drove away from police.
It just went chaotic. And then I remember yelling, "Taser, taser, taser," and nothing happened. And then he told me I shot him.
Potter was supervising another officer when he pulled Wright over for offenses she says probably did not merit a traffic stop. Wright had expired registration tags and an air freshener dangling from the rearview mirror, both technical violations that are often overlooked.
An air freshener to me is it's just an equipment violation. And during the COVID times, the high COVID times, the Department of Motor Vehicles was so offline that people weren't getting tabs, and we were advised not to try to enforce a lot of those things because the tabs were just not in circulation.
Then the stop went wrong. Wright pulling away with an officer still dangling from his car. Potter says the officer had a look of fear on his face and she wanted to save his life. Potter is charged with 1st and 2nd degree manslaughter. Legal experts say that the prosecution probably has to prove that she acted with some degree of consciousness. If the jury decides that she acted unconsciously and didn't know that she was using lethal force, that's probably not enough for a conviction. The shooting came when public interest in police killings of black men was at its peak, in the midst of the racially charged trial of the white police officer who killed George Floyd in neighboring Minneapolis, drawing protesters to the scene of the Brooklyn Center shooting. Over and over, in a tearful cross-examination, Potter, who had never fired a weapon in an arrest, apologized.
You were focused on what you had done, because you had just killed somebody.
I'm sorry it happened.
Because you knew that deadly force was unreasonable and unwarranted in those circumstances.
I didn't want to hurt anybody.
And that's why you said, I'm going to go to prison.
I don't.
Whether that happens and whether Dante Wright's life ended in an unfortunate accident or a criminal act, a jury will decide. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Chicago.
You were listening to the WINNFM Headline News on 98.9. Our top stories were 2021 Panorama Competition winner to take home EC $15,000.
45 people received certification from 2021 National Skills Training Program.
Entrepreneur Amelia Chiverton opens local artisan gift store, The Olive Tree, in the height of the pandemic.
Remaining missionaries kidnapped in Haiti released. Internationally, flash floods in northern Iraq have killed at least 12 people. Hundreds more have been injured. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
You have the keys to your new car this Christmas? Now it's time to get it insured. Visit Didi Baldwin, agents for Caribbean Alliance Insurance, to save up to 65% off your motor insurance premium. All new clients are eligible for major discounts. Plus, there's lots of sweet prizes to be won. Switch and save and get in on the action. Visit us today in St. Kitts or Nevis, or give us a call at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Promotion ends December 31st and all quotes are valid until January 31st. Drive secure this Christmas with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Terms and conditions apply.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoyed the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king. Please drink responsibly.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Found the sound 98.9 WIN FM.
People make the world go
It's raining gifts at TDC Insurance Company this Christmas. Insure this season and get up to 30% off property insurance, up to 60% off motor insurance, and a host of freebies like free windshield cover and free alternative transport. Plus, you get 3 months where your payment is free. Contact us today for a quote. TDC Insurance. It's raining gifts this Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is WIN FM.
People make the world go
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News on WIN FM 98.9. It's 31 minutes past the hour of 12, and we are going to begin the second hour for today. It is Saturday, December 18, 2021. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius, and we have Mr. Kevin Hope, the Executive Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Schneiderman Warner, social commentator, and of course Mr. Craig Tuckett, the president of the UE Global Alumni Association, and we're having a very detailed conversation. We're trying as best as possible with what we have. Let me say that we do not at this point in time have the audit report and the other estimates, as the budget is still ongoing, but with what we have here, we're trying to make sense of what was presented in Parliament on Tuesday. When I say make sense, explain it to you, the listeners of WINNFM 98.9, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We're going to continue today's program with Mr. Craig Tuckett, as we were unable to get from him as we had to break for the headline news. Mr. Tuckett, are you still online? Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, very much so, Devon. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, Mr. Tuckett, we want to get from you your opinion on, whether the budget has fiscal safeguards for the possibility of natural disasters like hurricanes, flooding, and the continued impact of the pandemic.
Thank you very much again, Devon, for allowing me this opportunity. Of course, I would have listened very attentively to the contributions of my two colleagues who would have made their contributions before the break. And I would like to also make a comment based on their contribution. So the first thing is, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, is that the increases of any budget for any particular ministry will be dependent upon the plans, policies, programs, and projects that the government would have, basically building on the previous budgets before. So it is not a standalone budget that does not have a past and now will have a present and, of course, a future. So that is important for us to note. And that is why all of us who are, whether graduates of the University of the West Indies or any other university, has a very important role to help educate, but to educate with understanding and with knowledge and with the proper information. That is done by following the budget presentations over the previous years. That being said, it is important to note that the National Disaster Preparedness falls under the Office of the Prime Minister, National Security. And so clearly, as you can see, there is an increase under the Office of the Prime Minister, which I alerted to previously. And so there is indeed safeguards within that ministry under which natural disasters fall. Clearly, that is there, and that has always been there. It is important to thank God and to acknowledge as a people that we have not really been hit with any natural disasters for some time now. And let us continue to pray and ask God for that continued blessing. But what I would like to also say is that the Prime Minister had made mention in previous budget presentations that the incomes from the citizen by investment has been used and continue to be used as a fail-safe for any contingencies that may shock our economy. And he has mentioned last year that the reason why we were able to sustain our economy with very low incomes from the tourism sector and any other of the other sectors is because of the fiscal management that he and the ministry, officials of the Ministry of Finance, have been able to do with the influxes that have been coming, though reduced, and with, of course, with the citizen by investment. This is a far cry from what used to happen before. And so based on that, that's why I was kind of concerned with certain statements that were made by my two colleagues. One, that 90% of the previous spending, or even what is being projected, will come from the CBI. And that is not so. Our tourism industry, prior to the pandemic, was number one in the Caribbean, if we forget. We had the largest record of cruise industry or cruise ship visitors in the history of our tourism industry. We had the largest record of stay-over visitors, and we also had increases in our bed, or should I say room stock. That was all under this leadership of our Prime Minister and the Team Unity administration, lest we forget. And so I must say that statement has to be verified, and I want to say that I can say that that is not the correct statement to be made. Also, since the team unity came into administrative authority by the mandate of the people, one of the major points that the administration has always said that they will have transparency as relates to the CBI, and that the inflows will be for the use of the people. And I will say that, as you have said in your theme song, people is what makes the world go round. And it is that promise that our party, the People's Liberal Party, a part of the team unity administration, always put people first. It is also a theme of the People's Action Movement. It is also the major theme as relates to this year's budget presentation made by the Minister of Finance. So I say all of that to say, in regards to the question at hand, clearly there is the necessary contingency plan with the increase of the budgetary allocation to the ministry for the office of the Prime Minister, under which natural disaster or the NEMA is falls under. And that is why we are seeing the continued efforts by NEMA to ensure that we continue to be prepared, and that is also bolstered by people who are involved at the community level for their natural or disaster preparedness committee. So again, justification for the increase of the Prime Minister's office, and of course, we must continue to pray and ask God for his continued blessing that we have no major exogenous shocks to the economy due to natural disaster.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckett, for your contribution. Mr. Warner, Mr. Hope, can I get your response to Mr. Tuckett's comments?
I think there is consistency with what was said earlier with respect to, thankfully for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, the over $1.7 billion of citizenship by investment receipts between the period 2015 to 2020 has enabled us to at least be in a position fiscally to be able to respond to the pandemic shock that we are going through, in addition to the opportunity to respond to any natural hazard. I beg to caution, notwithstanding, that if we are in receipt of such huge inflows, we need to be deliberate as a country to ensure that the expenditure of these inflows are deliberate with respect to being of a productive expenditure or investment nature. And we're equally deliberate to ensure that these proceeds can enable us to transform our economy and reduce also our dependence on tourism, as is evident that our major foreign exchange owner during the period 2020-2021 was impacted, and that also would have displaced a number of persons. I recall the Prime Minister spoke about 3,500 persons in 2021 applying for the second stimulus in terms of that income support. And by extension, one could infer when he quote that number, that this is predominantly persons within the services sector who are impacted. And while providing income support to these households, affected households, are important, it means therefore that, again, here lies an opportunity that how we utilize our CBI inflows to engender and support entrepreneurship, to engender and support other sectors, whether it be in manufacturing. We are confident and we support, again, the focus on providing support to the MSMEs within or even the agricultural sector. But part of the post-pandemic strategy that I'm aware that is currently under preparation, we are hoping, obviously, to see clearly articulated policies and plans where we are looking to also support this vulnerable group. 3,500 persons applying for income support speaks of the level of vulnerability. And again, we recognize the focus on health and education, but herein lies an opportunity. Let's not waste this crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Mr. Warner.
I responded to Mr. Tuckett thus. You made reference to, quote, transparency, and then you said clearly clearly that explains that we have made the provision. Well, I got my spectacles changed a few months ago. I do not know what the numbers are. Telling me that the Prime Minister intends to do so, show me the evidence. Of course, yes, the budget has not been approved, so we don't know the specific numbers. But do not tell me that I must just go on this principle that politicians use that say, trust me. I always make reference to a movie by Spike Lee, The Girl's Gotta Have It, I think it's called, or She's Gotta Have It, in which a character in there said to her boyfriend, the last time you told me to trust you, and I did, I got pregnant. I don't like politicians telling me, trust me, show me the information. The presentation made by the Prime Minister is rather scarce of specifics. It's rather scarce of detail. The numbers that they are debating at the moment are totals. I do not know specifically in each department, addressing the subject that you addressed about emergency, how much in each of these departments is allocated to such potential emergencies, and therefore how much of the total $950 million is allocated to that purpose. And I would remind anyone that all those years ago, IMF said this very fragile thing called the sale of citizenships should be used not as a primary source of government spending, but as, let's call it, an emergency and for long term. As Mr. Hope said earlier, the concept of a sovereign growth fund. You put this money in there, and that is what it's for, because it's a unique form of government income. It's not an everyday form such as road taxes and other things, income taxes on businesses, etc. It's a unique form of income. So again, I am limited to how much I can say about the 2022 budget because I do not have any details. I have broad promises. Yet again, another thing I must say, when one listens to ministers and, well, let's call them all constituency representatives, whether they're on the opposition benches or on the government benches, so much of the discussion represents a look back rather than a look forward. Ministers tell us what was done in their ministry the past year, what they've been doing, etc. No one gives much attention to the specifics of what makes up the X million dollars in your department and what is going to be done compared with the previous period. One of the things we need to point out, the 2022 budget should not be looked at comparing it to the 2021 budget for two reasons. One, we don't know what the 2021 real numbers are as yet. And that is something that is singularly and significantly missing from all analysis that goes on in this country. In December of each year, we discuss a budget and we speak about what we are going to do. But we don't say, well, what have we done for the past year? Where are we right now? Because that's the closest measure. Because when we are preparing to spend $10,000 on something next year, it was based on when maybe we spent $8,000 on it this year or $11,000 on it this year. Not what we spent on it 2 years ago. And for genuine analysis of the spending of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and any other country in the world, the 2022 could only be best judged against 2019. 2020 was an unusual year. 2021 was an unusual year. Those 2 years should have asterisks next to them. If I can use something very simple illustration, the amount of water consumed in our primary schools in 2020 was far less than anticipated. So if we had to go with the water bills of 2022, compared to also 2021 when the schools were out for a period of time as well, they're not equal comparisons. And so it is incumbent on the people who run the country that when they're telling us things, to give us useful information so that we can make real comparisons. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis reports to the IMF and reports to the central bank on a quarterly basis, telling them what is going on. But we have to wait over a year before we know what they did. In December of 2021, we get the auditor's report for 2020. Well, guess what? The Minister of Finance knows how much was collected in taxes in every department of government in every month of the year up to November 30th. Why don't we know that? Why don't we have that as an analysis saying, here's we are relative to what we're talking about next year? It is, for me, the gripe, the absence of information with which to discuss government policy rather than discussing the real numbers. We're talking policy, we're not talking numbers. I can't comment on the numbers whether they are good or bad. We talk about, we had our hotel did this, we had this number of visitors, etc. Okay, Mr. Tuckett, would you tell me what was the average spending of each of those cruise ship visitors in 2020 compared with 2019 compared to 2018? Because I can have an increase in the numbers, but each of them is spending less than before. Maybe the real increase is not there in dollars and cents. Those are things that we must look at.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Warner. Mr. Tuckett, are you hearing me clearly? Are you still on the line?
Of course, loud and clear, Devon.
Okay. Can I get your take on that?
Yes. And it is important to note that it is under this administration that we have laid before the Parliament the audited financial reports for various years for the first time in a very long time in our country's history. It is important to note as well that this is a very arduous process given to any director or department of audit. And indeed, it is something that will take a lot of human resource. This is something that a lot of our governments in the Caribbean are facing and have challenges with. But under this administration, we have laid before the Parliament. And before the Parliamentary Committee would have looked at those audited financial reports, and they would have been put before the Parliament for public consumption. So that information is there. Of course, there's always room for improvement, and I think that the Minister of Finance would address that whenever he has that opportunity.
May I interrupt, Mr. Tuckett? May I interrupt you?
So if I may finish, thank you, sir. I've listened to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Devon.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckett.
And so thank you so much, Devon. And so I'm sure that those issues are concerns which affect every country, not just the Caribbean. Even developed countries with the resources to do the necessary work and the necessary auditing always have a delay. It's never, I tell you, never a situation that you have that information prior to until maybe a year or two, or even later than that, even the great United States of America. So I'm not using that as an excuse, but I'm just stating the reality. But that being said, again, it's always room for improvement. That is why we have these intellectual discourses and debates on the national airwaves. And hopefully we will have our graduates from the various universities of higher learning to give their support to the government that will in turn help develop our nation.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Tuckett. Mr. Warner, you wanted to say something?
The reports to which you refer, you're speaking about the reports of certain government entities, such as some of the public corporations. I am talking about the report that has been tabled every single year, regardless of our administration, called the Director of Audit Report, that is tabled at the House at the budget session each year in December. These are the reports of the activity of the federal government on the Nevis Island administration of the previous financial year. What one is saying is this. There's no reason why during the course of the year, just as the government reports to the IMF and the central bank, why the people of St. Kitts cannot be told, here's how much money has been taken in the first 3 months of this year in this area versus last year. 6 months, 9 months, as the case may be. Because the information is there. By the time you give that information, the data is at least 11 and a half months old. And in terms of real analysis, you can't make what we call a mid-course correction. If halfway through the year you tell people, here's what's going on, we had planned to spend in 2021 $5 million on something, and here we are at June, we've only spent $4 million, and why? Or here we are June, we spent $7 million. Why? Not in 2022 December telling us what happened in 2021. We boast about our education standards in St. Kitts, and we boast about our literacy rate. It is high time, regardless of our administration, regardless of the color of the flags that the political parties wave, it is high time that the politicians of St. Kitts Nevis treat the people of St. Kitts Nevis as the educated people that we boast that they are, and give them information that they can use, not broad statements. If I open any page of the Prime Minister's address, I will see broad information without being specific. And it happens on both sides of the aisle. We said the same things, yet again, without being specific. What are you talking about when you say we've helped the agricultural sector? Well, tell me, okay, I spent so much on seeds, or I spent so much on water, or I spent so much on providing the use of plows or whatever it is. But if you just speak broadly and say, we have been helping the fishermen, and I'm a fisherman who has never gotten a penny's worth, I'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. However, if you said to me, well, because I'm subsidizing the price of fuel, I can then say, oh, now I understand. I benefited because I got the price of fuel reduced.
Now, with that being said, Mr. Warner, and would you say
I'm
people...
Not hearing you. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry. You hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Now, with that being said, would you say that people in St. Kitts and Nevis pay attention to the budget presentation and understand the advantages, disadvantages, the implications of it?
You can make archaeology exciting if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make T20 cricket boring if you wanted to. It's a matter of what your goal is.
Right.
There's no built-in interest in politicians of any flavor to make these discussions interesting. After all, the budget sessions are held the week before Christmas. People's attentions are... what was the major talking point that came out of this budget? None. Because we are discussing the 2022 budget. The major talking point that came out of this budget session was a double salary for 2021, not 2022. 2021. That's what the average person is talking about. Double salary for public sector workers. So if the intention was to give people more information that they could use and in which they could challenge their representatives, it will be done. Anyone who has read the Director of Audit reports over the years will tell you that the little booklet that it comes out is shrinking. Not only is the booklet shrinking, the font size is increasing. So the amount of information in there for analysis is even less. Yes, the Prime Minister's budget address this year only took up 43 pages, or much longer last year. But even within these 43 pages, one would have hoped to see more specific information. You can open at any page at random and find something broad without being specific. Transparency is not about looking through something necessarily when it comes to governance. It's about having a bigger page and more information on the page. Not information to clutter you and distract you, but useful information. Your engineer who knows about cricket statistics would tell you most people want to know who won the game, but there are also people who want to know, well, how are the opening batsmen doing? How are the spin bowlers doing? That sort of analysis some people need.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mr. Hope, following the same line of question, do you think people actually, are you hearing me clearly?
No, I'm not hearing you clearly. I'm not sure about it. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So, following the same line of questioning, do you think people actually pay attention to the budget presentation and understand how it impacts them?
I would like to believe everyone would have some takeaway from the budget. I would ask the question, though, is the question is really our responsibility to educate the population about the impact of the budget to them.
Right.
So if a single parent, government employee, a double salary for me would be something of great interest. And I mean, especially knowing that I can make greater provision for my kids, right? On the other hand, I think I may prefer, if I'm a single parent with a few kids, let's say 2 or 3 kids, government employee, knowledge that my future income in 2022 is going to improve from, let's say, $3,000 to $32,000 or $3,500 per month, because then I know it would have implications for my Social Security, improvements in terms of my future retirement, implications with respect to maternity and other benefits. So I know, and this is why I spoke about the 3,500 applicants for income support. So yes, we support the whole discussion around income support to provide support for those who are most affected. But we have to start envisioning and having discussions around how are we going to move this vulnerable population back to employment on one hand, or even create incentives and opportunities for even them to consider self-employment, right? There was earlier the discussion between, Mr. Warner and Mr. Tuckett. I also wanted to weigh in. I recall when we used to have consultation on the economy. And I also want to encourage for us to return to that and ensure that this consultation is one that's reciprocal, right? That civil society, the private sector, and others would be able to contribute to that engagement and have discussions, and the public would benefit even from those discussions leading into the budget. Mr. Warner spoke of, I know of a number of countries which tend to have mid-year reviews. So then the population is also informed. I know some mid-year reviews in some countries, they may have it around August, September. So you would have already had the January to June data as to how the country performed, both in terms of income and revenue. So the population will be better informed as to how we are faring already mid-course, so we can know if this is an opportunity for us to make some adjustments, or even to at least give the population, the public, the media, and others some ideas as how we intend to work towards attaining the objectives within the budget by in December. We have a responsibility, I think, all stakeholders, to be able to, and for those of us who have had the benefit of understanding economics, understanding finance, to bring to the public the evidence and the data to empower them to make better decisions. In fairness and in all honesty, we still have an uncertain future with respect to 2022. Yes, there is pent-up demand in tourism, and one is projecting a recovery in tourism, and we are hoping for that to happen. So this 3,500 persons within the services sector could return to employment. But there is equally the risk that we may not be able to attain the 10% gross domestic product, real GDP, that is being projected by the IMF and by the authorities. So we need to have a discussion in terms of, yes, there is a projection of 10%, but the budget, in a sense, is a little bit silent as to how we intend to get there, right? Again, I spoke about the reduction in capital expenditure by 25%, and I respectfully, Mr. Tucker spoke about successive budgets. But in a period for which you are responding to a crisis, the expectation in Economics 101 is that you would focus on being countercyclical. Yes, there is income support to retain and support households, but we have to have focus attention on job creation, on stimulating employment-intensive industries or sectors, of which, yes, agriculture is one. We still have manufacturing. We also still want to ensure that we create opportunities for training so that we could respond better in this post-pandemic period.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hope. Mr. Tuckett, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, loud
Okay.
and clear.
So, Mr. Hope spoke about having national budget consultations. What is your take on that approach? And would you say people pay attention to the budget presentations and understand the implications and you know how the budget actually would impact them? But your take firstly on national budget consultations.
Well, that is a given. I mean, the fact that the minister with responsibility for finance and also the prime minister not only had such consultations prior to COVID-19, but also had consultations regards to the CBI program. And so, you know, these are things that are part of the administration's push to have transparency and accountability in regards to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is a given. I'm sure it will be done. Of course, we had some challenges as regards to having this being done the previous year and of course this year. But I'm sure the Prime Minister is well aware and he is looking to have that done shortly. I would like to say as well that the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce gave an A grade to the budget presentation and the estimates that have been presented before Parliament. And they publicly thanked and praised the Prime Minister for this year's budget. And I must say as well, if memory does not fail us, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce has in the past continued to give resounding support to the presentations of various budgets by the Minister with responsibility for finance in previous years. And we expect that with that continued support and collaboration between the private sector and the government, we will see positive benefits to the people and for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, in regards to the question of whether or not the people or the majority of the people or the populace follow the budget, I will say yes and I will say no, because it is twofold. You have to understand the process by which a budget is presented. So you have the various ministries who would have put forth their policies, programs, and projects. They would have presented them to the Minister of Finance and his technical team. They would have been debated and discussed. Then a decision would have been made whether to accept the proposed budgetary requirements or needs of those various ministries or whether to cut. And then they would have been put in a tabular form and reduced to key points so that the Prime Minister, or in this case, the Minister with responsibility for finance, who is the Prime Minister, will present it to Parliament for debate. So in terms of the question of whether or not there is more needed for specifics, it is very hard to produce specifics in a budgetary presentation that is geared to key points. It is at the ministry level that the specifics are discussed within the technical discussions and debates that are presented by the ministries to the Ministry of Finance. Now, that being said, it is then now where the persons, John Public, who will listen and hear what are those particular key points and how that would benefit me and my family. And so those are the ones that people listen to. That's why in agriculture, the farmer will say, hey, I'm hearing that I'm going to get discounted rates on feed for my animals. I'm going to get concessions on water because the government is going to invest on irrigation systems. I'm going to have accessibility to my farms because the roads will be fixed. Those are key points that that particular segment of the population will look and listen to, and they will see the benefit. And the same way in terms of education. It means that my child, who is now 18, who just finished college and wants to go off to University of West Indies, they will now get the support from the government because there's an increase in the budgetary allocation for Ministry of Education. This is the benefit to the individual segments of the population. But again, it is based on the people themselves who understand that the budget will impact upon their lives, and they themselves need to do their part to educate themselves more as to the process, how a budget is prepared, and how it is presented in Parliament, and then how it will impact upon them in the future. And in that regard, I would like to say it takes more impetus, not only on the government per se, to make it more exciting, but more so on the people themselves to become more involved in the development of their country. To do that, they must educate themselves, they must become aware, and listen to programs like these so that they can become more informed.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckett. Gentlemen, would you want to respond to the comments echoed by Mr. Tuckett? We have some callers on the line that are trying to get in. We'll just take a few calls short, and we're going to wrap up the program at 1:30. It is 7 minutes past the hour of 1. We are heading to the phone lines. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. Good afternoon, sorry. You're on Inside the News.
Yes, good afternoon. I just want to make a contribution to this discussion. I particularly support the view by Mr. Warner in relation to how the CBI fund should be utilized in relation to addressing hazard impact and also undertaking long-term development type projects. I support it in the context that I think one of your panelists said that there is the CRIF fund that would help to address disaster impact. But I want to encourage you, Mr. Moderator, to do some research on the CRIF facility, because from what I know, it is not the general type of insurance. It is something called parametric insurance. Long and short, I think it's that in order to get a payout, the hazard impact had to be at a certain threshold. For example, a flood that is a 1 in 50 year or 1 in 100 year event. So we really need to be very cautious and careful to put aside a huge sum of money from that facility. Thank you.
Thank you, caller, for your contribution. We're still taking calls here on WINNFM 98.9. The numbers are 466-0989, 762-0989, and 662-0989. You can also send us a WhatsApp with your contribution at 662-2204. Anyone cares to give a response to the comment by the caller?
Yeah, I would just like to agree with the caller, and that is why it is the technical team of the Ministry of Finance who makes those determinations, not the people. We have a ministry with technical persons who are educated, qualified, and have the experience in helping the Minister with responsibility for finance to manage our economy and manage it well. And it is based on those decisions that it is indeed implemented, that we have seen in the past 7 years that has impacted positively on the lives of our people and by extension, the development of our country. So I agree totally with what he's saying. It's a valid point, and that's why we have trust in the performance of the ministry over previous years. That's why we can trust them now and in the future.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr.
That
Tuckett.
approach sounds basically
Mr. Warner.
the equivalent of saying, leave it to us, we'll take care of you. The reference was made earlier to a budget consultation. The budget consultations of recent years, I would say the last 5, no, not even that, the last 7, 8 years, have been primarily talking shops for ministers and permanent secretaries telling us stuff The session is convened at 9 in the morning. By the time the prayers are over and the reading and the singing of the national anthem, we then have long presentations by permanent secretaries and in some cases ministers telling us what they hope to achieve and what they have done. The amount of time allocated for the input from the public, from the private sector, is less than 1/3 of the total day allocated for it. And in the notion that we are not clever enough, it should leave it to the technocrats. If my road has not been resurfaced for the last 14 years, don't you think I want to have an input saying, what about the roads in such and such an area of St. Kitts? Because they may not have noticed that those roads are in terrible condition. So budget consultation is more than just a bunch of people with university degrees and job titles sitting around at the Marriott and other places and making prepared presentations. They also involve the ordinary folk through their representatives saying, here's what is needed in my area. On another subject, in the areas of which I have interest, whether it be education, roads, healthcare, crime, whatever it is. Something that, speaking earlier of what my fellow panelists here said about the 3,500 persons getting support. The goal of a country should not be to boast about how many people to whom we provide support, but about how few people need support. Not boast that we provide support for 3,500 people last year, but that because of the health of the economy and the number of people in work, only 500 people needed support. That should be the goal, not to give support to 4,000 next year, because it suggests that the needs of the people are not being met through their own, their jobs and things like that. And if I could make a diversion onto the issue of the double salary. Double salaries are deserved, and I put that in italics. But government workers need salary increases, not handouts from politicians once a year, handouts that are short-term. Mind you, those injections in the economy are welcomed because of I think it's about between $16 and $18 million the federal government spends each month on salaries and pensions, etc. That $16 million going into the extra $16 million going into the economy in December, I can assure you, less than 10% of that will still be in the pockets of the people who received it come February of next year. And so it benefits the economy. But the long-term benefit to the worker, government workers need salary increases. Government workers in 2021 are getting, in real dollars, less money than they were getting in 2010 when we were in the midst of our local economic difficulties. That's what we need. Let me give you a little example as to how these monies put in the economy benefits. It's an extreme example, but it shows you how when you put money into the economy, it goes around, but you don't want the money going in December and then you suffer for the rest of the year. A guy goes into a hotel and says, I need a room, but could I see your rooms first? And they say it's $200 a night. And he puts the $200 down, and they say, but I need to go and look at the room to see if I like it. He said, okay. He puts his $200 down on the counter, and they give him a key to go upstairs and look at the rooms. The manager listens to the conversation and says, what? He runs out, grabs the $200, and runs across the street and pays a butcher from whom he bought meat last week. The butcher is really pleased to get his $200, and he runs and he gives it to the farmer from whom he bought the pig the week before. The farmer says, there's a woman I owe some money. Let me go and give that woman the money that I owed her. And he runs and he gives her the $200. And she says, the last time I stayed at that hotel, I didn't pay them. I need to go and pay my debt. So she runs up the street and puts the $200 on the counter and pays the hotel the $200 that she owed. The man comes back downstairs and says, you know what? I don't think I need the room after all. picks up his $200 and walks out of the hotel. All those people have had their debts satisfied, and the original person still has his $200. He placed that $200 in the economy. And so, yes, it is welcome, but it is the way it is put in. And my challenge is about the double salary. I do not begrudge any public sector employee who has received this, is that the optics of it are not good. Why do I say this? The people who are getting a double salary did not miss a single month's pay in the last 20 months. But we had people in the hospitality sector who have been out of work or who have reduced incomes for all of those 20 months. And you are now asking people who have been on reduced wages, and in some cases no wages, who are paying their taxes when they go to the store and they buy a broom and they pay 17% VAT, or they buy a mop bucket or a pair of shoes. You're asking them to give a double salary to people who never suffered a loss in income over the past year and a half. Something doesn't look good about that. The Prime Minister said that there are many people, there are many households who have had reduced incomes, but the persons in those households who are public sector workers would bring money to those households. Well, guess what? There are some households that has nobody in there who is a public sector worker, and therefore they don't get any benefit from this. And there are households who every worker is a public sector worker. And so they've, to use a phrase, cleaned up very well. A double salary in 2021 for public sector workers, whilst it is going to make a significant injection into the economy in the month of December, on the largest scale, I find regrettable.
Stick a pin. Let's head to the phone lines quickly. Okay, we seem to have lost that caller. Caller, you can call us back at 466-0989. We want to get in some calls, and we're going to end the program at 1:30. The numbers are 466-0989, 762-0989, and 662-0989. You're listening to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. The caller is back. Let us take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My concern is not so much what is in the budget, for after all, it should reflect government's priorities, and these are the prerogative of the people that the voters, in their wisdom or lack of, put in charge of their affairs. My concern is that there's not enough safeguards that the people's money, we can be assured that the people's money is being properly spent. Okay, the auditor's report, as was noted, comes after the fact. So does the Public Accounts Committee action, right? They are at the back end, essentially. So much damage can be done before the reports and investigations, etc. Take, for instance, the Peace Initiative. That seems to be a program with no oversight and no end in sight. So what safeguards should be put in place to prevent runaway spending through bad policies or the execution of such? In other words, what holds government accountable, especially in an environment where there's no openness in government? Okay, what should the public expect? Because they only get a chance to have a voice every 5 years. In between there absolutely needs to be safeguards, this kind of safeguards we expect in a good governance environment. And we don't have those currently, I don't think.
Tell me what the safeguards you would like to see.
Comment on this.
What do you recommend?
If I may add to that,
One second, Mr. Tuckett. Let the caller finish and I'll let you continue. Caller, go ahead.
I respect it. What I would recommend, for instance, the thorough application of things that had been advocated for years that hold government accountable. Things like freedom of information, things like an effective public accounts committee. There's no sense having one on the books when it's not functioning. things like integrity in public life. Again, there's no sense having them on the law books when they're not applied. Those things hold government accountable. Okay? That is what we expect. And we don't expect that we'll be told that we have surpluses after surpluses when in fact there are deficits, or when in fact there are other contributors to the revenue stream that shall we say extraordinary windfalls. Okay? In other words, we need a proper operating government that looks at its budget and tries to follow it and make sure that at the end of the budget session, well, in between they don't have to go for pass appropriation bills, etc. But at the end of it, it's as close as possible to the reality or to what was proposed at the beginning. That is what I would expect.
Right. Carla, thank you so much for your contribution. We have to take this quick break to give a shout out to the sponsors. When we come back, Mr. Warner, you wanted to make a contribution, and Mr. Tuckett. Let's take this short break. We will be right back.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click.
With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free U.S. mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience, free consolidation up to £10, competitive rates, free package tracking account with live notifications, free delivery, and of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
People make the world go round.
Welcome back to Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. Today is Saturday, December 18, 2021. It is 24 minutes past the hour of 1 in our studios, and we are winding down. We'll try to end this program at 1:30. And of course, this is a discussion on the budget presentation, made by the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance on Tuesday this week. That was December 14th. So we are continuing this discussion. Mr. Warner, you wanted to make a contribution. Would you like to do so now?
It was just a brief response to the caller. The concept of accountability, the processes are there, but this has been going on time immemorial. The Public Accounts Committee does not function. The Public Accounts Committee was restructured a few years ago to make it even less accountable in the broader scope. The politicians, no matter which administration is in office, always in opposition, always criticize what the administration is doing, regardless of whether it's good or bad. And the state always says, the administration always says, things are wonderful, but where they're not wonderful is not our fault, and it's not in our, it's because of external forces. Accountability is not just a matter of saying, here's what the budget is. After all, the budget is condensed into 3 days of so-called debate. And but the broader talking to people and explaining to them in what things mean and getting their input and their feedback has not been there. Not this year or last year or the last 5 years. It has not been there in the entire, how many are we now? 38 years of independence?
Yes.
It has not been there. It is something that is missing, and the people who choose to run for elected office in this country have an obligation to do better.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mr. Tuckett, can I get from you wanted to make a contribution? You can do so now.
Thank you. I'll be as concise as possible because of the time frame. One, I totally disagree with the statement that was just made. Clearly, we have had on this administration more transparency and more involvement and engagement with the public sector, the private sector, and the general populace in regards to the running of the economy and how it will impact upon them. It is true, those, and also may I remind, the manifesto promises that were presented to the people, why the decision was made, in a resounding mandate to have not only in 2015 the team unity administration at the reins of power to guide us to a better, stronger future, but also in 2020. And we have seen the benefits of that, even in these times of global crisis. I would also like to say that in regards to the issue of the double salary against a wage increase, let's look at it from a numbers point of view, because my colleagues like to use very simple analogies to try to explain the economy, which is not really and truly the best way to try to educate our people. Because as we know, the economy is very, very in-depth and more complex than what is stated. You have, in the history of mankind, I mean globally, if there's any wage increase for the public sector, the most you will get is 7%. Let's just say by chance you got 10%. 10% on someone who's making $300,000 a month is $300. So $300 by 12 is $3,600. Of course, to do that, we're talking about increase on government spending, and of course, to look at the increase of the present number of persons employed in government, which we have now seen under this administration, they endeavor to increase it by involving step workers and other auxiliary workers to give them a better standard of living. But respect of that, so that's 3,600. Is it now a fiscal decision to say, can we truly afford 10% increase over a period of time? Or is it not better to give the same close to 3,600 in the form of a 3,000 salary extra? That is the fiscal decision. And so you find now, especially when you have an administration like this, that have done it consecutively for 7 years in their period of time, except of course because of the COVID, that shows their commitment to people. And it is a decision that I can rest assured will continue once this administration is allowed to chart the way forward, our country to a better, stronger future. And we will see even greater things under the leadership of our Prime Minister and the team in the administration.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Tuckett, for your contribution. Mr. Hope, did you want to make a contribution? Mr. Warner?
I'm happy to make a contribution. So, Mr. Tuckett, a lot of what you said with respect to commitment to people, I mean, we recognize and we support, obviously, the intention to empower persons, but we have to also exercise caution and be mindful of the messages we are sending to the public, or even regionally or globally. For example, we have a situation in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of our active population, of which currently the government employed, prior to this budget, around 45% of the active labor force in our country, right? And yes, the initiative by the government to obviously empower the step workers to give them some prominence and enable them to access finance, among other services, is commendable. But we also have to be mindful that this may be also a consequence of not also paying attention to stimulating private sector activity or creating the type of incentives that would enable greater private sector employment, because it's a partnership. Now, we've been advocating for partnership in development. So the step, we support the idea of people empowerment, but part of people empowerment also means, one, we want to try to incentivize more persons to become entrepreneurs and ensure that they can have easier access to finance. Two, even with respect to our peace program, or the whole peace program and initiative, as one of the callers spoke about, we also want to ensure that if monies are being expended in this area, that the beneficiaries, right, part of the whole reform initiative that is being articulated is, one, that there's a sunset clause. They're getting the appropriate support and training, that they themselves could become responsible citizens and contribute to our country. So there is still a number of disconnect and moving parts, and I agree with you, Mr. Tuckett, that the economy is a complex one, but it's also our responsibility to engage the public, to be inclusive, to strengthen the social partnership, and have more inputs into this discussion and debate, because there's still a segment of that 55% that is employed in the private sector, right, who also, and by extension again, are MSMEs who ensure that there are jobs created in our economy above and beyond the government that also needs some special attention, that needs the support. And this 3,500 of beneficiaries who are currently on income support, which we know, while yes, it's helpful or useful at this current moment, is not sustainable, that both the Peace Program beneficiaries and this 3,500, we have to design policies and initiatives to support them to get back meaningfully employed. And here is where we come in within the private sector to continue our deliberations with the authorities, to find solutions, to collaborate, and ensure we have a sustainable and resilient economy. My final submission is, I want to share the experience of Antigua and Dominica. And this is specific to caller number 1. Antigua and Dominica were impacted by either Hurricane Irma for Antigua or Hurricane Maria in 2017. Fortunately, we sustained minimal impact. The impact in terms of the damage and loss for Antigua was 15% of their gross domestic product. In Dominica, it was 25% of their gross domestic product. And let's bring it back to home. The discussion around ensuring that we have safeguards, that we are deliberate with making provisions with how we manage our CBI resource for investment to respond to shocks is important, because at this current moment, we have an estimated, as at October, $699 million in government savings, which to a large extent is part and parcel of CBI inflows plus part and parcel some of our domestic revenue collected then. And by rough estimation, that's around 29-30% of our gross domestic product. So any shock, whether it be Hurricane Irma, which was 15% in Antigua, or Hurricane Maria of 225% of the gross domestic product in Dominica, we recognize that even our 30%, while it's good in terms of a buffer, is not necessarily sufficient. So, as I'm saying, we have to ensure that we do not expend this resource without the right type of productive investment where we're building resilience. And I would end on that. Or even where there isn't sufficient debate and engagement within the social partnership to ensure that we are not sort of what one of my colleagues tend to use the phrase learned helplessness. We want to teach people to fish so that they can fend for themselves, they can make provisions and contribute meaningfully to society, as opposed to developing this culture of probably giving a fish. We support the double salary within the private sector. We're happy for the stimulus. We support the income support. It demonstrates, the government is definitely demonstrating their commitment to people, but also we also need our government to be honest, to clearly articulate to our people that here is how we're going to teach you to fish. Here are the resources, here are the tools. These are the type of incentives in terms of getting easier access to credit so that they themselves could become more entrepreneurial.
Thank you, Mr. Hope, for your contribution. Guys, we are really out of time, and so we're going to begin wrapping up. Mr. Warner, can I get your take on based on what Mr. Hope and Mr. Tuckett said?
I'd just like to, Mr. Tuckett, I think you made an error in your arithmetic, and I don't think it was intentional. In order for someone to receive a $300 increase at 3%, their monthly salary would have to be $10,000. And there are not many people in the public sector who work for $10,000. But in simple arithmetic, giving someone an extra month's salary is an 8.5% bonus. Government has given, over the past 15 years, probably maybe in 10 of those 15 years, double salaries. 8.5% bonuses over those 10 years is the equivalent of an 80% bonus over those 10 occasions. If government had given 3% increases each of those years, in terms of fiscal management, it would have been more affordable to the state. And so an 8.5% bonus at the whim and fancy of a politician, because in the past it was an election is coming, now we are now expecting it. Why not just give someone a salary increase? That's all I'm saying. If you could afford an 8.5% bonus every year, give the person the honor and the respect of a salary increase, because as Mr. Hope said, down the road, you cannot put that bonus on your Social Security benefits plan. It doesn't benefit your pension, it doesn't benefit your maternity benefit, it doesn't benefit your sickness benefit. You cannot take it to the bank. Give public sector workers salary increases and stop these platitudinous handouts at Christmas time, so that politicians of all flavors and all tribes can say, look what we've done for you lately. That is my gauge with the double salary. And let's face it, one of the greatest aspects of the stimulus that was given last year wasn't the $1,000 payments to unemployed people. It was public sector workers continuing to receive their full salary. That was the biggest, in terms of dollars and cents, stimulus to the economy, because for the months that many of them were at home and not working and continued to get their salary, that was part of the stimulus package that is not being counted in the numbers. I do not deny public sector workers, because for the most part, they're underpaid. The average public sector worker is underpaid relative to their private sector counterpart. Give them bigger salaries. Give them more respect. Don't give them handouts.
Thank you, Mr. Warner, for your contribution. We are out of time, and we're going to have to wrap up this program for today. Let me just use this opportunity to say thank you so much for joining us here on Inside the News. Mr. Hope, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Mr. Tuckett, thank you so much. And Mr. Warner, thank you. All of you have indeed made meaningful and impactful contributions, and I'm hoping that we can have you guys back in the future for future discussions like these, so we can continue to educate the people in St. Kitts and Nevis on these budget presentations and similar events. Thank you, guys, and until next time, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year when it comes. Next Saturday is Christmas Day. The one after that is New Year's. So to the listeners of WINNFM 98.9, you would not be hearing me next Saturday or the one after that, because it's a public holiday. But the very best always, and take good care. This has been Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. Until next time, stay safe. Remember, wear your mask, wear your seatbelt, take good care.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
It's raining gifts at TDC Insurance Company this Christmas. Insure this season and get up to 30% off property insurance, up to 60% off motor insurance, and a host of freebies like free windshield cover and free alternative transport. Plus, you get 3 months where your payment is free. Contact us today for a quote. TDC Insurance. It's raining gifts this Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.